A very good morning to all the students. I hope every one of you is in a good health. So we were doing this chapter, how do organisms reproduce? We know that organisms reproduce in order to maintain their species on the earth so that the species of those individuals can exist. So there are two modes of reproduction which have been already discussed, that is asexual mode of reproduction and sexual mode of reproduction. Now, asexual mode of reproduction is very simple. It's so simple that even the single cellular cell undergoes asexual mode of reproduction. When the organisms were developed, when the life on the earth came on the existence, the cells were very, very simple. They were not complex. Even they were prokaryotic cells. So the reproduction happened that time by the mode of asexual mode of reproduction, and which is still going on. This asexual mode of reproduction is also occur in the nature now today also. So all the single cellular organisms, even the multicellular organisms like plants, they undergo asexual mode of reproduction. In that only one parent is involved and a new individual is formed from that single parent. So the new individual which is formed from one single parent has almost all the characteristics of the parent cell, and that is identical. Like in the case of budding, so the buds arises from a part of a yeast and then it develops, and then when it becomes mature it detaches from the mother cell. So both the cells are identical and they have the same number of all the DNA in that. So since in the asexual mode of reproduction there is no change occurring, all the individuals which are forming from their parent are just the identical. So there is no variations, but the nature demands variations because it will help the existence of the species on this earth, because reproduction is the main cause of the existence of the species. But what happens if suddenly the environment in which a different particular species is surviving changes? Like for example, a species of bacteria survives at 20-degree temperature, but due to some problem the temperature rises to 40-degree. Then all the species of that particular bacteria will die. It won't survive. So we need to have variation so that the new individuals or the new offsprings, or there should be some kind of a bacteria of that same species, should have the ability to survive at different temperature. For that we need variations, and that variations can only be happen when there will be fusion of the cells. So the sexual mode of reproduction is that which takes place by the combination of the specially reproductive cells, and there is a fusion of gametes. Gametes means the cells which are responsible for the fertilization. So in this, the gametes are one from the male and one from the female. So we already know about sexual mode of reproduction because we have read in our previous classes. So since the sexual mode of reproduction is very important for the variation of the existence of the life or the variation of the generation, so then why do this asexual mode of reproduction still there in the nature? Because the asexual mode of reproduction, although has some drawbacks, but it is also best or good for its organisms which do not have specialized organs. So the organisms which do not have specialized organs, they can only survive by this asexual mode of reproduction. And even the plants, some plants also are grown by the asexual mode of reproduction. But for the variation of the generation, so that we can get a different species, different variety, a strong variety, we need this sexual reproduction. Now in this kind of reproduction, there always has to be two individuals because it does not take place by one individual. So there will be a male individual and a female individual. That means we should have a male gamete and a female gamete, and then there will be a fusion of the gametes, and then there will be production of a zygote which grows and develops into a new organisms, and it becomes a new species. So this sexual mode of reproduction, in this, when two different cells are involved, that means there is a copying of DNA. So when this DNA copying is done, it is not sure that the DNA will be copied accurately. So when the new offspring will be born, it will have some variations, because the DNA of mother will be different and the DNA of father will be different. So the new individual, although will share the DNA of mother and father, but still there will be a variation, because it will not be absolute accurate copy. So that difference in the formation of the new DNA give rises to the variation, and these variations are responsible to protect the population of the species for the new time or for the new challenges. So these are very, very useful to ensure the survival of the species in the different time scenario or the different timeline. Now, if the organisms have these variations, so what if they have a lot of variations? The organisms do not have a drastic variations, because having a drastic variation can also lead problem to the individual. Like if an animal has 4 legs and it is born with 6 legs, so that animal will not be able to survive. Or if there is a difference in the DNA, or there is a drastic change in the chromosome number, maybe the organisms we have different diseases. So these diseases or these abnormality are also not considered as good. So yeah, there should be variations, but not a drastic variations. The variations should be very, very small, and then they will be seen under the during the generations to generation. So when from any individual or any parent a child is born, so that parent must also be having a different DNA from its parents. So that change keeps on moving, that hereditary change keeps on moving, and the cell has already been through a lot of variations, not that drastic variation, but a little variation. And the father also had been, the cell of the father has also been through a variation. So the child has its own DNA. Because this DNA copying is that is a work which is very essential, but sometimes if this is not done precisely, the individual will not be able to survive. So when a new individual is born, it has the quality of mother and father. The new species which is born from the new generation is more immune from the previous generation, and because it has variations, so after the combining the two different DNA, a new better DNA is formed. Now, if an individual is sharing DNA from its mother and from its father, it could also be chances that it will have double the amount of DNA. So if it will have double the amount of DNA, then twice the amount of DNA, then maybe all the control of the cellular apparatus of the DNA will be starting, there will be a complexity. So in order to deal with that, our cells or our body has been formed in such a manner that we have different kind of cells in our body. Like in all the other parts or in all the other generations, a regeneration cell has 46 number of chromosomes, but the gametes have only half a number of chromosomes. So other cells are called as somatic cells, and the cells which are used in the reproduction or in the fertilization are called as gametes. So these gametes undergo meiosis. Meiosis, in this, the cells are divided into 2 halves and then into next 2 halves. So in this process, the cells or the gametes have only 23 number of chromosomes, that is 22 are autosomes and 1 is the sex chromosomes. So when these half a number of chromosomes combine with the other half a number of chromosomes, then the set of the chromosomes completes and the new individual cell has all the 46 number of chromosomes. That means it has 23 pair of chromosomes, including the sex chromosomes, that is X or Y chromosomes. So by this, it makes sure that the new cell has both the chromosomes from mother and father, but the number of chromosomes should be maintained. Only then the individual will be able to survive. And these are called as germ cells. We can also call them germ cells. And when the fertilization occurs or when the fusion occurs, the zygote formation is done, and then the zygote grows and develop into a new organisms, which is again a highly specialized, which is having a high specialized tissues and organs, and they also have a lot of energy to store in them. So that is why in our body we have two types of cells. That is, one is germ cells, which has all the ability to give rise to a new individual, and then the other cells which undergoes in the production of our life and our daily needs. So this is a need of the sexual reproduction, because we need this reproduction so that there can be variation in the generation, and it is very, very essential for a species to survive for a longer period of time on this earth. Now we'll be moving to next topic, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. First we'll start with this. Now we have been already learned this in our previous classes, so it would be easy for you, I guess. So since this is a flower, and we can see that a flower has many parts in it, and here is the green part. Okay, so this is the leafy part just below the flower, which is called as sepal, and the colored part in the flower, which looks like the leaf but it's not leaf, it's called as petal, which provides the beauty to the flower. Then here we can see stamen and pistil. So these are the anthers and filaments. So these are the anthers and these are the filaments. So these anther and filaments are the part of a male gamete. That is, a flower undergoes a sexual mode of reproduction. So in that it also has need to have two different gametes, that is female gamete and male gamete. So in this, the anther and filament are the part of male reproductive system, that is androecium, and this is called a stamen. So stamen are the reproductive part of a flower, or the male reproductive part of a flower. And here is pistil. So pistil is a female reproductive part of a flower, which has a stigma, style is a small tube, and this at the center is ovary. So stigma is the sticky part of a flower in which the pollen grain sticks, and then they move to this style. This is a long tube, and here in the center it's ovary. In the ovary they are ovules, which are called as eggs. So pistil is present in the center of the flower, and the female, it is a part of a female reproductive part. So here if we look to this picture, we can see the this portion, that is gynoecium, which can also be called as the pistil. So here it's a diagram, that is, this is the stigma and this is the sticky portion, and the pollen grains from the anther sticks here. So they are the male gametes. So these male gametes will be absorbed by the pollen tubes, and this pollen tube, this is the stigma. This is the stigma and this is the style. This is the style. So this is the elongated tube which goes to the ovary. So this is the ovary, and in here there are number of cells called as ovules or ova. So this pollen grain will go from here to the style, and then it will enter the ovary, and then it will fuse with one of the egg. So when the fusion is done, the zygote formation takes place, and then the zygote will divide several times to form an embryo. So embryo will develop into a fruit, and during that all the leaves, all the sepals will just fall away, all the petals will fall away, and the stamen style will fall away, and the fruit will start growing, and the ovary will rapidly ripen into a fruit, and it will develop the size. So it also has some seeds, because there are many eggs. So those seeds contain the future plants in the embryo, which will develop into a new seedling, and that whole process is a type of a sexual reproduction in plant. Now, some plants do have both the male and female part in an individual flower, but there are some plants which either have a male part or a female part. So they are called as unisexual plants, that is papaya or watermelon. But there are some bisexual plants which have both the androecium and gynoecium, or you can say that pistil and stamen, like hibiscus, mustards. So they have both like anther filament and stigma style ovary in a single flower. So this is how the sexual reproduction takes place in the flower. This is very simple. You can just practice the diagrams of this and you will learn this, all the labeling. Okay. So till then, study hard and do all the question answers, and we'll be doing the next topics in our next chapter. Thank you.